Today is Monday, October 28th, 2024, and this is Spring Office Hours, Season 3, Episode 36, Building Awesome Spring AI with Mark Pollack. My name is Dan Vega, Spring Developer Advocate at Broadcom, joined by my good friend and colleague, DaShaun Carter. DaShaun, how you doing?
I am doing wonderful today. It is a great time to be a Spring developer. I really look forward to these shows. This is a fun time. I enjoy what we do here, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to today's episode.
I am too. I almost thought we should have called this Spooky Spring AI, but there's nothing spooky about it because it is Halloween week here in the States. So fun times.
Is this just the States thing, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. I always feel like I'm very careful about that, and I just kind of let that one go. So
Yep.
holidays everything is different everywhere. So
Yep.
I'm pretty sure Halloween is pretty universal, but I don't know why I said that. So what have you been up to? What did you do last week?
I ran a half marathon on Saturday.
I saw that. It looked a little chilly out there.
It was a little cold to start. I dressed warm, and I had, I've done this before, so I knew what to wear so that I could, as the temperature warmed up, as my body warmed up, I could shed and change to adjust for the temps. So it worked out.
Nice.
Yeah, the planning helped.
Awesome. I've been like working on my office lately. I don't know if you can tell in the background, but I got the walls painted. I got a new desk. I don't think I've ever felt this good about my office. Yeah, it feels good. It feels good to like sit down, turn the lights on.
I don't want to talk about it.
Your office is great. What are you talking about?
I don't want to talk about it. Well, see, I have the camera zoomed in so you don't see what else is happening.
Yeah,
in the
I get that. That's okay. So yeah, I've been working on that. I did some live streaming last week. I saw you you made a couple comments on that.
That was good. I enjoy that. I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy the unscripted thing.
Yep.
I also get a ton of value out of like, hey, here's the content. Here's what I'm going to teach you. Here's the agenda. I like that too. But yeah, I enjoy the unscripted content. I enjoy hearing feedback from our community and capturing that. I think it's fun, and I think the unscripted, stream and chill approach opens the door. I think it's more, comfortable for an audience member to jump in and chat.
And as someone who like has to sit down and edit and polish and publish and market videos, like the live streams are so much easier. Like you just sit down, record, and I'm done with it. Like I don't have to do anything else, which is really nice. But speaking of AI today, I did find a really cool use for AI last week. So after I did a 2.5-hour live stream where it was basically just question and answers.
Mhm.
And sometimes I like say, oh, I'll come back and watch that and like mark those questions down that I didn't like have an answer to, or somehow capture all those questions and answers. I took a video transcript of that 2.5-hour live stream, fed it into Claude, and said, hey, give me some key takeaways, but give me every question and answer I had in there. So, because I read the question out loud and then I answered it. And so now I have a transcript of all the questions that were asked and now the ones that I didn't answer as well. So I can come back and like figure out an answer to those. So,
But you can put those questions in the summary, right? In the description
yep.
too.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's good.
Yeah.
But we're talking about AI, and we were having a good conversation even before we started the show. And do we have anything else to get out of the way? Because I'm kind of excited for today.
Yeah. So let me just real quick, if you're joining us live, we do this live stream usually every Monday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. So feel free to join us live if you want to go ahead and ask some questions. DaShaun, if they have questions.
When you come to my house for dinner, if you leave hungry, that's your fault. So here, because it's open, it's office hours. You have the opportunity to ask a question. And if you don't ask questions, that's your fault. So I encourage you, don't leave hungry. Get your questions asked.
Yeah. So if you're here in the live stream, let us know where you're joining us from. Great to have you here. If you missed the live stream, you can catch the replay on the Spring Developer YouTube channel. We also take this and turn this into a podcast. You'll find it usually up Tuesday morning, wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, I think what we'll do is go ahead and bring on our special guest for today, one and only Mr. Mark Pollack.
Yay, he's here. And I think we decided that Mark, as of today, is now like the guest that we've had on the most often. So
Yes.
we've done a few of these shows, and I think Mark has been here the most. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us again.
Again.
How are you doing?
Okay, yeah, my pleasure to be here.
I know that you're busy, so we're happy to get your time.
Real busy. So, Mark, you're the lead of Spring AI, the Spring AI project. For those out there,
yeah, I think I founded the project, but now there are other people committing. So, I committing less, I think, but they're committing more.
That's good. You
with
have
Christian Zolov and Sobi Chaco and Alaya. I don't know how to say his last name after all these years.
That's okay.
It's kind of embarrassing. Sorry, Alaya, if you're watching.
We get it. We a lot of times we don't say last names. It's like Sobi, Alaya. Like it's just
Gupananthan, maybe. I don't know.
We'll ask. G. We'll ask. Maybe that's our
He's not the OG. He's the IG.
Bring it on the show.
Yeah.
And we'll get it straight from
So just a little history of Spring AI. How long have you been involved with the project? How did it get started? Where are we right now? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the real origin story, I guess, was shortly after ChatGPT was announced. And then I think maybe a few months later, there was Google making an announcement and Microsoft making announcements, and decided to look into it. Really don't have a big background in the field. I had used neural networks a very, very long time ago, but that was like 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, maybe 20. And when I saw that it was just an API, I was like, oh, wow, this is way more simpler than I thought it would be to get started. And I started listening to podcasts. I found those to be, certain podcasts to be very informative, and more so than reading up on the web and documentation, because they kind of really explained better, at least the ones I found, like the why and the reasoning behind what you're doing. So, I had been working on Spring CLI at the time, and I was always been into code generation. And so I said, okay, let's see if it can generate Spring code. And I did. I was like, man, that was pretty cool. I couldn't believe it did it, way, way, way back then. So I looked around, I looked at LangChain and Llama Index at the time, and started modeling stuff after some of their abstractions. And yeah, thought that we should create a new project because it really felt, I mean, maybe seems obvious in retrospect, but maybe it wasn't so obvious at the time that this was going to be a big wave. And yeah, unlike, let's say, Hadoop or big data, where it was really coming from the Apache project or the major vendor, right, providing software support. It was very different this time around. There was a Spring Hadoop project that I started, so I try to keep up with the times, but that wasn't a very successful project. This is a bit different because there's less ownership, corporate ownership of the client libraries, right? In fact, it's a little bit like AWS. When it first came out, they said client library is your job.
Yep.
Right. So that's kind of the brief history. I don't know if there's any areas you want to talk about more there. But,
yeah, I think
would be a good area to go into.
Yeah, I think we got a question about this right off the bat, and I think this is a good thing that we can go ahead and cover right away, because you said, hey, you found out that like these large language models had this REST API, and so now you could build something around facilitating that REST call, right? But I think people see that and they go, well, if it's just a REST call, why do I need a framework around that? So this question that we got from Mayhen says, hello guys, how are you? Why do we need to choose AI for Spring? What advantages are there? So I think it comes into like, this is much more than a facilitator for making a REST call, right?
Yeah, it goes really way back to the early principles, the way Spring provided. No one talks about it this way, but Spring used to tout like sort of three key abstractions: dependency injection, portable service abstractions, like around database calls, and AOP, right? But the portable service abstraction is the important one here. So, Java developers want portable code, right? I think that's pretty much a truism, meaning they can go from one vendor to another, let's say one database vendor to another, without rewriting. And there was a time before ODBC and JDBC where if you wanted to switch from Oracle to Sybase or vice versa, yeah, it was a big deal, hard to do. And so you can look at OpenAI and its REST API and say, oh yeah, I'll write a client for that. I'll do it in an afternoon. And then you say, well, now I want to use what Amazon's offering, or I want to use what Google's offering, and I need to compare and contrast. So you end up writing as many clients as there are model providers. That doesn't start to become fun, right? That's why you can pick up libraries that help you, like Spring AI, that help you, with that portability. And another big reason is, as the models have gotten more sophisticated, it's becoming a lot more than just one REST API call. There's a feature called function calling, where the model will determine, based on the context, that it has these functions to call. And if you can call that function, or if the model can call that function to help solve the problem at hand, it'll initiate a very complex and long series of back and forth to invoke these functions maybe multiple times. So it's this whole conversation back and forth. Again, every model now kind of provides this feature. They all do it differently. Some do it streaming, some do it not streaming. In essence, this is classic boilerplate code. That's the classic stuff that Spring helps you get rid of. So you don't have to waste your time with this lower level stuff. You can just get started. But once you have that foundation, and Lord knows it's taken a while for us to get that foundation, you then need things like observability around that, or higher level patterns, right, to implement your solutions. And I think that's kind of the phase we're entering now in Spring AI. I think most of the plumbing is taken care of. Still some refinements to do, but moving into these higher level patterns, application patterns, is the next area. So much like, Spring made a singleton easy, right? Your singleton code anymore is kind of similar with these higher level patterns for AI. That's an answer. Bit of a mouthful.
It seems like we've been here for a long time. And I honestly feel like the implementations that we were doing, even just a year ago, of like a chat bot, oh, hey, let me go and get some code generated. Those implementations, I feel like within just a year, we've advanced where the chatbot bar has actually been moved up to like function calling. And we're still not at a 1.0 release yet.
Yeah, in part, that's been part of the problem. There is a bit of a moving target. I think more or less things have condensed now, and I wish we would have gone GA earlier. I think we haven't been very good managing our roadmap and communicating our roadmap because it's just been a bit chaotic. But now I think we're in the tail end of that. So we hope to go GA early next year, January, I hope.
Even without being GA, I'll ask, are people taking it to production?
I've seen people take it to production. There's always going to be aggressive companies, right? Probably smaller companies.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on their comfort level, looking under the hood and being prepared for changes. Any open source project, just because someone out there called it GA, would you trust them anyway, right? You gotta review the library yourself and see if it makes sense and it's stable for you, right? We obviously come with a sort of reputation around what it means to be GA, and that, in fact, might be a problem. For the first time, we'll probably release a GA product that depends on non-GA dependencies. Why? Because Google's SDK and Microsoft's SDK that we build upon, they're not GA either. I think a lot of the Google stuff is like perennially in beta. Yeah. So what are you going to do in that environment, right? You still have to go forward in some kind of semblance of normalcy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something before that made me think, DaShaun and I often talk about, we liken kind of Spring AI to Spring Data. So when people say, like, why should I reach for Spring AI? It's like, well, why should you reach for Spring Data? You can talk to a database at a lower level using the JDK's APIs, but that becomes very cumbersome, right? Like, I want some of the power that Spring Data gives me, the abstraction levels that it gives me, to kind of move fast. And I liken that to Spring AI. Like it gets all of the boilerplate, low-level code that I don't have to write and lets me focus on kind of building.
Yeah, what's old is new again, right? It's just a different topic.
I don't think I've ever said it this way before, but I think that with Spring AI, the benefit of that abstraction is even more visible. It's even more powerful because Spring Data, we have a lot of customers, a lot of communities still just using one database. But on the other side, on Spring AI, I'd almost say that more often than not, our customers, our community, they're connecting to more than one.
Yes. So that's a very big difference. You're right. Exactly. That in a production application, it would be, air quotes, normal to potentially use different models for different purposes. Again, some of that could be driven by cost or speed. There are also local models now that have come a long way. In terms of, for us, it's primarily using Olama as a mechanism to run these models locally. And we've been to some customers. It's definitely changing, how they go about acquiring hardware. Typically, enterprises didn't ask to have GPUs. So even running local models for them is difficult. But potentially it's in-house, and that has, definitely lower latency, most likely with the right hardware, and security, I guess, is, if data can go out of your data center or not, it's probably a topic that's very similar to relational databases being offered online, right? In the beginning, everyone was like, no way is Amazon, getting my customer database. And now they're like, why not? They're so secure. The CIA is doing it. If it's good enough for the CIA, it's good enough for me,
That's definitely a concern because, again, not that long ago, the ChatGPT, hey, it's great. I'm going to use it. I'm going to do it for all these things. But little did the community understand they were training the next version of that model.
Yeah, that's with their secret. Not the secret, but I don't know the hidden value, right? It's like also why Reddit, right, for example, now is everyone's basically charging access to their data. It was kind of a free for all, and I don't know where this will end up legally, but clearly there's some legal issues to sort out there about what's free, what's open, what's not. And who knows? But training data is very important.
One of the things that I guess I'd talk about when we're talking about, hey, do you want your model to be in-house or on somebody else's? And I always come back to, I think it was the Samsung part where somebody used OpenAI to summarize meeting notes, but the rest of the world says, hey, what happened in this meeting on this day? And we had all of the information.
I'd be willing to bet that I don't know all the details there, but probably was blocked to begin with, and then someone said, I'll do it anyway, right? And of course, the default in OpenAI is to share your data, right? So I don't know where the blame lies, but it's definitely a concern, right? And I think those stories definitely, made it more visible. You have to be careful here about your IP. OpenAI is a young new company, right? I'm sure they have incredibly smart people around security, but there are more established vendors, right? And that's probably why the Microsoft OpenAI collaboration is very good, right? Azure has been probably tried to be hacked a million ways to Sunday, and so they know these big cloud providers know how to deal with that potentially better than a startup. Despite it being a $150 billion startup, Microsoft is a $3 trillion organization market cap, right? So they're still bigger.
Yeah,
the $3 trillion gorilla.
I recently did a video on RAG for Java developers, retrieval augmented generation, and I talked about like getting your data into a vector database and how Spring AI kind of supports all these different vector databases. And I've heard you say that behind the scenes, trying to come up with a query language that talks to all these different vector databases was not a lot of fun. So how is that?
Well, actually, the development of that was Christian, and I say he probably had a good time developing it. But if you look at, it involves an ANTLR grammar, and some people they wake up and eat that for breakfast, right? I never had that formal CS training, so for me, formal grammars were always a little hard to grok. In fact, that was the first version of Spell, the Spring Expression Language. I worked in Spring.net, and we needed some kind of like expression language for flow control in pages. And Alexander Siovic, who was a contributor, was like, "Oh, I'll just knock this up in an afternoon." And said, "Okay, go for it." So it's kind of the same thing here. And what's disgusting about the query languages for vector databases, some are kind of nice. Let's say they look like MongoDB, JSON. You can kind of picture making that, even though it's a little tedious. Others are like weird, like underscore prefixes and suffixes and really weird tick marks, to escape stuff. But the bottom line, no matter what it is, just like the API itself, they're not portable, right? And so when you get serious, right, about vector databases, and it's not really obvious from simple demos, you need metadata to describe this embedding, right? And the metadata is just like a label in the table saying the topic of this, embedding is shoes. I don't know, or shoe catalog. Imagine you're a sporting goods company, right? You have a lot of catalogs, a lot of different areas, and that's your where clause, right? And maybe you have a catalog from one year and a different year. And how do you sort all that out? You don't create a database per catalog, right? Per, meaning, literally catalog a person would look through online or printed. So that becomes very critical, right? To have a where clause. And this gives you that portability, this SQL-like language. So it's pretty straightforward to use. Maybe something we haven't spoken about a lot, even in our demos. But as demos get more sophisticated, that will become, I think, appreciated. It's probably a hidden gem right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen like other tutorials out there using Java and other frameworks that this becomes very convoluted because there's two phases, right? There's an ingestion phase where you got to get all the data into the database. And then there's a second phase where I'm like actually trying to do some type of like similarity search against the vector database to get out the relevant context to send along to the LM. So there's a lot going on there, but with Spring AI, I just say here's the
engineering going on there than one really appreciates in the real world.
Yeah.
I'd say some of those areas around the data engineering part are some of the details we're trying to fill in before GA, as well as some of the more advanced RAG approaches, right? There's some seminal papers that summarize these approaches. And
Mm-hmm.
right now our support is pretty basic, although for many use cases, that's fine.
Yep.
But there are nuances, and it gets into how do you know what's better, right? These papers, claim they're better and they describe the circumstances, but at the end of the day, you have to evaluate yourself and kind of learn the tricks of the trade for, squeezing in your custom data into the prompt so that it can operate on that.
And that's the big thing, right? The custom data, right? There's tons of options, lots of LLMs, and even SLMs now. The size has become a differentiator, but we don't need vector databases to do that simple use case. Hey, just go use it. That's kind of like the first check the box, but it's that custom data. Everybody's asking.
Well, it's really about the size of the custom data, right? When the models first came out, it was 4K context. So let's just say 4,000 words you can send. If you send 5,000, either throw an error or drop the extra 1K words on the floor. Now the models are around up to 100K, which clearly is better, So
Google has 1 to 2 million context size.
Yeah, but bigger isn't always better. So then they have research papers that show if you send it 1 million words and you're doing a needle in a haystack question, right? It can get confused maybe. So, this is like kind of leave it to the experts in my mind. Like if 1 million worked, we'd be like, great, it's not a problem from that point of view. But you are charged these hosted models, so it does cost is always a concern. So
we want to let you send us 1 million words because we're going to charge you for
Josh repeats this phrase, which I'm sure is very well known. It's sort of like your constraints dictate your architecture, something like that. And that's exactly what's happening here. Is that we have these vector databases because we need to fish out the relevant data and send the most relevant subset. And there are all these advanced RAG patterns where you get into this kind of, I don't know, I keep saying it almost sounds like a synonym, game. Similarity doesn't mean relevance. You're like, well, then what are you talking about, right? But it's true. You can reorder the results from the similarity search to be ordered by relevance, right? Like, that's kind of an abstract concept too.
What is relevance?
But so there are, I think we're in the early days and just getting
still in the early days. It
feels like it's that many apps in production, but
it feels like we've been doing this for a long time. But
in the enterprise, at least,
it hasn't been
just individuals.
But every time we talk about it, customers, community, they're asking, how do I make these work for my data right here?
Mm-hmm.
And what we already have, what we've already seen, and what you've
gets you going, that's for sure, right? And you find out where the limits are, or maybe you're fine the way it is right now. You don't need to get too fancy. There's definitely a large range of problems where you don't need to get too fancy, like terms and services, right? Just text usually has meaning, but financial 10K reports that have graphs and tables, those are harder to process and feed into the models in a coherent way.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something there too, because I talked about this in my video, but I think people are getting a little bit misunderstood when it comes to RAG too. RAG is not just sending all your information along in the context, right? I'm not just going to send a bunch of documents along in the context and call that RAG, because if I need to summarize entire documents, sure, I need to send all that context to get a summarization. But as you said, if you have a million words and you need to find that needle in the haystack, there's no point in sending all that.
Correct.
You got to find the relevant bits and send that along with it.
Yeah, it's more costly and potentially confuses the model. And I'm sure someone just made a dare to the engineers at Google and said, "Let's do 1 million, so we seem bigger and better." Sure, why not? Right? Sure, something good came out of that research.
Yep.
But it's not super practical. I think on one of the podcasts I listened to, they were so curious about it. They said, "What can we do?" And they took all the scripts from Seinfeld. And it was close to 1 million words, and they sent it over, and they said, write a new script. And honestly, it wrote a pretty good script. But I think that query cost them $40.
Jesus.
Which I'm sure, for creators out there are probably offended, of course, that it's writing a new script, and $40 doesn't sound that bad to make a new show.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's kind of pricey for every time, imagine going to an LLM. So there are probably use cases where that context makes sense, but most of it is, you can kind of, I think we're in a sweet spot now. 100K feels like a pretty good sweet spot.
Yep. Cool. So I think one of our plans for today, the title of the show is Building Awesome Spring AI. We wanted to put together a resource for the community. We won't finish it today, but this will be a kind of a good start. There are a lot of these different awesome GitHub repos out there. And DaShaun even did a similar one in an earlier show. We'll try and link to that in the show notes, where we kind of got all of these resources for getting started with Spring. So it's just a nice GitHub README, the repo that you can kind of get started with Spring. So I want to build that out today and really just kind of organize what we want to put in there. So if you're joining us live, please, we want to collaborate with you. If you have suggestions for this, please get them in. And also, if you have questions, go ahead and get those in.
I'm going to just share a couple of comments here real quick.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Our good friend Simon says, hey, thank you for the seamless talk at DevVox, Mark.
Yeah, I just replied.
Awesome.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is good stuff. We like what we're doing. And I saw this other question here. Can you build vector DB easily using Spring Boot and RocksDB? And I'm not sure if this is like, hey, does RocksDB have a vector implementation? I just did a quick search. I don't think that it does. But then I was like, well, maybe you're trying to pull information out of RocksDB and have that vectorized so that you could use it with a Spring AI implementation. And I think that the answer there would be yes. There are 14 different vector stores as options today on start.spring.io. I just did a quick count. And yeah, getting your information out and into something that can be used with Spring AI. It doesn't have to, you don't have to have a vector implementation with RocksDB, even there may be one. So you have other ways.
Is a company called Rockset that apparently is the people who scaled the online data platform of Facebook and created RocksDB. So like they started a new company, I guess they're very entrepreneurial, called Rockset. I'll put the list here, the link here. I didn't know that.
There we go. It's moving fast, right? A few years ago, it was JSON databases, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit like the NoSQL days and key value stores. I think maybe one difference is that, Oracle database, now it's called Oracle AI, right? So adding an embedding model, which is typically what these do, can be added to existing databases. It might be a little bit of an unnatural fit, or there could be different architectures. But sometimes you can get away with using Postgres's extension or Oracle's extension, which was really not the case, I think, in the NoSQL days. But there are many, many of them. I'm sure there's a great website that compares all the pros and cons. I really wouldn't. It's a big, long list.
Fantastic.
A lot of activity out there.
Cool. All right, I wanted to share a couple of things real quick because the community may not know about them. First off, documentation has always been great for Spring AI. There's been some documentation updates lately, one of which is this chat models comparison. So if you're not familiar, you can go into the docs and look at a chat models comparison. It kind of lists all the providers and do they support text, image, audio, video? Do they support calling special, tools or functions or streaming or retry, observability, etc.? So this is a really great resource if you haven't seen this. Also, at the Spring Initializer, we have some new starters, one of which is for Anthropic. So that before you could go in and just kind of add that starter, but now that's on start.spring.io, which is great. And then we also have the document readers. So there is the Tika, the Markdown, and the PDF document reader. Again, those were something you could use before, but now they're all just right at start.spring.io.
Can we give a shout out to the Spring Initializer and start.spring.io? If just a year ago, if you were to come in and look, the list was very much different. The number of options of resources, of things that have been included here, largely in part due to the Spring AI, has grown, and it continues to grow. And it feels like almost every other week we're getting something new added to the list.
Yeah. One other nice thing, which I haven't explored fully, but suppose you type, I don't know, Milvus or something like that up there, right? where you are, Dan.
What is it?
Milvus, the vector store.
MIL.
Yeah, MILVUS. There are others. So you select that, and then select Docker Compose.
Ah, yes.
And add that, and now browse it, and you'll see you'll get a Compose file.
Yep.
And so there is that integration of Spring Boot with Docker Compose.
Oh, this one didn't do it.
It did. It was right there.
It gave me the Compose file, but it didn't give me
was empty.
Oh, maybe try another one. I'm forgetting which ones we have. We don't have the try.
I know
PG
PG
Vector.
Vector works because I did an example with this before, and it fills out.
There you go.
Compose.
Yeah. So I think we have to round that out. I think we have probably like half of them filled in.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was contributed by Edu Mendelez from Docker.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
So we have more to fill in, but it's quick way to get started, right?
Yeah.
To use those vector databases with a container.
Fantastic.
All right. So yeah, I want to show this repo real quick because this is the one we did in a previous episode. But if you go to github.com/spring-office-hours, there are some repos in there, and we did this learning resources for Spring. And look at this. We have 761 stars. We had like 500 the first day we launched this.
That's pretty cool.
Let's
see if we
cool
can do the same here.
Yeah. So that's what I'd like to do. Kind of follow this format. Have some things. We'll break down the different sections like documentations, maybe books and podcasts and YouTube blogs, whatever we think is kind of a good fit for this.
And what we did last time, didn't we just draw it? I think we were just kind of like grabbing things and throwing them on. Maybe that works.
Do you wanna do some drawing, and then I can come back and fill in the repo later. But the repo is here, github.com/danvega/awesome spring AI. We could always move this somewhere else. I know Mark and I just kind of threw this together the last week, but right now this will live here, but we can always put it somewhere else. But there's just an intro. What is Spring? What is this repo for? What is Spring AI? And then we'll have a list of resources.
All right, so that works for me. So we're gonna start taking some notes. Oh,
yeah.
And we'll see if we can come up with a resource to give our audience like, hey, you want to get started using AI, and in particular Spring AI. Like, where should you start? Well, I know where I'm going to go first of all is spring.io, and then we'll go from there. So I've created my little board. I'm going to add this here, and I'm going to bump this up a little bit so everybody can see. This is where I'm going to start. Mark, you said that as you started creating Spring AI, you kind of looked at some of the other models, and you had podcasts, right? What are some of the podcasts that stood out?
Well, let me just go to my phone. So here we go. Okay, by far the best one, I think, because there's two brothers from Australia, and they're completely hilarious, these guys. I mean, they actually want to prank their mom and have a chat bot, see if they can get their mom to give up her account. It's kind of vicious what I'm saying now. They're really nice guys. Trust me. It's this one here, This Day in AI podcast.
This Day in AI.
Nice.
Yeah, even though it doesn't come out every day. Very funny guys. They have a YouTube channel, and sometimes it's relevant to see when they do vision-like stuff.
Okay.
Other demos. This one also I found very good because they talk to founders here. Like
which one is that? I can't see it.
Practical AI.
Yeah.
It's from Changelog. Yeah, I've listened to that one.
Yeah, that's the other one. Then there's this one, Latent Space.
Latent Space.
I don't think I've ever listened to that one.
I know.
Is that Sean Swizik's?
Let's see. The name doesn't ring a bell. I'm so bad with names. I never remember who's who. Here, George. Oh no, that's the guests. I don't know. You'll have to look up the name of the.
I will.
Run that. And the last one, there's two others I have, which I kind of stopped listening to these guys, but I go back every so often. See here, look, AI, this is what I would listen to, right? I have October 7th. AI agents, substance or snake oil? Right?
That's a good one. Yeah, we've
yeah.
been talking about AI agents lately. So
Yeah. You see, look, we then dig into, I didn't even know this, the AI snake oil book, which uncovers examples of problematic and overhyped claims. Right. So this one, that's a good one. Yeah, let me put that up here.
What was the name of it?
Yeah, here, this guy.
What is it? The name of it?
Yeah, TWIML. So he comes from a more machine learning background, so I think that's what the ML is.
Right.
But
this week,
and that was also very interesting. One of these podcasts, that's where you really heard like ML practitioners, basically saying, "Oh, now I don't need to do training anymore," and that was like 90% of my job when I went on the site.
Now. You're bringing
so that
up a
gave
point.
me hope as well that it was relevant to have a library like this, and it's more accessible for Java developers who aren't formally have a background in machine learning. And this will be the last one.
All right. And what's that one say?
Sure. Gradient
descent.
Yeah.
All right, that one, I remember you recommended that one to me before, I think.
I think that's all that I have here. There are probably even more that I don't know.
Yeah, Simon.
I haven't looked around in a while. These keep me more than.
Simon added, it's called Your Undivided Attention.
Ooh, nice.
He says that's also nice. One of the nice things about having Mark on, one of the questions that came in earlier was chat client or chat model, which I've been using. And Mark very quickly responded like, hey, no, listen. Chat client is the high level interface. Use that. Like, this is just great. Not only are we going to talk about like, hey, where do you go and get your resources, but you're also getting the direct answers. Again, get your questions asked. If we don't get to it right away on the stream, we'll get to it eventually. Get your questions asked.
Here's another question from Lewis. Is Spring AI like LangChain? I think you've talked about kind of the origins, Mark.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I started and, had the first, little REST template or REST client, type thing going, I looked around to the projects that existed at the time, and this definitely grew out of the Python ecosystem. There was LangChain and Llama Index, and so I read a lot. I think there was a lot of hype around LangChain at the time. Maybe it was first. I'm not sure. And once I dug in, I was like, oh, there's a lot of good ideas here, but the code was totally, I think, a mess for a couple of reasons. I think one is like they started also early, so like their prompt structure was a string. Right, and by the time OpenAI got involved, there was already structured prompts that had like a system prompt and a user prompt, and then there's a halfway house where you'd have a string, but it'd have a section with system instructions.
Yeah.
Anyway, and there really wasn't a great object-oriented model. They had kind of like two hierarchies, and it was a mess. It actually took me like a good month of intense work just to try and make this model that now is just way in the bottom of the stack.
Yeah.
And there was LangChain for J, and a lot of people were like, well, I use LangChain for J. And I was like, well, after looking at LangChain, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So, maybe I was a bit biased there, but, I was like, good ideas, bad implementation. And then there was a TypeScript version. And I know LangChain for J didn't copy everything one for one, but there is like an official TypeScript version. So I don't know. It's just like, I don't want to be part of the LangChain universe. Let's just, do our own thing. Llama Index I found to be much more reasonable to approach. I think over time I tend to prefer looking at things now and how they're done in Llama Index. I mean, those projects are clearly like front runners in terms of really breadth, and depth, I'd say, right? So we're not like feature parity with those. I'd say, I mean, the main points, yes, but like once you start digging into the details, they have more depth, maybe a little more breadth. But nothing's created. This wasn't created in a vacuum. It definitely, those projects were already established, when I started this summer of, I don't know, when was that, 21, I guess? Forget. Was it 22? I can't even remember. When was it? When was the first commit?
22 is when we got Spring Boot 3. So I think it was 23.
Yeah, maybe that seems late. No,
Yeah,
I know it seems
22. I think it was 22, right?
I think it's 22. But
Yeah.
I should know.
I'm going to go look.
Because I guess it was November 2021 when ChatGPT 3.
Right.
ChatGPT
came out. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard to go through the UI. And I'll look
let
it
our
up on the
chat help us
side.
out. So good. What other resources do you reach out for when you're trying to keep up?
Wait, while we're on the subject of podcasts, I don't want to toot our own horn, but I think Spring Office Hours could be in there.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Definitely.
Cool.
Should be on that list.
All right. Really quick, I want to mention another one too in the category of books. Is our good friend Craig Walls. I want to go ahead and put this in the chat, but Craig Walls is writing a book called Spring AI in Action. So I think that could be top of the list there. I don't know if anybody has any other favorite, like just general AI books that they're big fans of. If you are, let us know. I've listened to like a few audiobooks that I like. But
I think it's John Bloom. I thought he mentioned to me he was writing a book.
He is writing a book. I don't know that he's announced it though. So I think we're supposed to.
I see. Okay. Hit rewind.
We'll get that in post. But shout out to John Bloom. We're all big fans of him and his work.
For sure. Okay, as far as YouTube goes though too, I do want to break YouTube up into like, here are some channels you can watch. But
I'm not with them in the video. I just watch them.
Oh yeah. I was saying there's tons of great videos here that are on YouTube that you're in, and they're awesome. And I was just saying, that I want to go and find them, and I want to add those links because there's some I really like. I don't remember where it was, but there's one. I think it might have been like the first announcement of the 1.0 or pre-release, and or milestone 1 or something. No, it was even before.
No, it was 0.8. I think we had.
Yeah, and it was just the way that you explained the project, and you had actually gone in and a lot of the same conversation, explaining like how did we get here and why, and I just love that video. Like, and if I'm encouraging somebody to learn about AI and get their foot in the door and use it, I like to point to that video, and this is again why I get goosebumps, because that one, and there's a couple of others that I'm like, yep, he explained.
Which one was that?
Really well.
Oh, the one from Craig.
Nope, I was talking about your videos.
Oh, I don't even remember that one.
I'll find it. I'll make sure that it's there. That there's a couple of videos.
Oh, it might have been the first DevOps video.
It might have been the first DevOps video.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where I wanted to go with this. I'd like a section on YouTube where there's like general playlists. I know Craig Walls has some playlists. I have some playlists. Thomas has some playlists, like a playlist of YouTube videos. But as far as like presentations go, I'd almost like a separate section of like presentations. So even though they're on YouTube, presentations like Mark and Christian Spring IO talk, we could start to like name out some of those, right? So Spring IO, Mark and Christian,
and then
Spring 1 keynote with Josh and Cora and Mark was really great. Had a kind of little bit of everything and introduced Spring AI.
Where can I paste links to in our chat here?
You could just,
Throw them in the
we
chat.
can just kind of jot it down, and then we'll add it later. But
that was the first one I'm sending, which oddly enough has Spring. I tried to use Spring CLI to introduce it.
Nice. I think those.
Well,
are the
there are
ones
also.
that
the presentations. Yeah, I mean on YouTube, I haven't gone through the list. There is. I don't know how to curate it in real time, but if
right, I think that's something we'll have to do some post, right?
Yeah, there are definitely people out there.
And the DevOps playlist.
Thomas Vitale has a lot of really great resources, including videos.
Yeah, here's one 4 months ago. I don't know.
Yeah. So
seems to have a lot of views.
Yeah,
39K views. That seems like a good number.
That is a good number. Yep. We had kind of like who's who. Who's who? Like, how about this? Who to follow? We mentioned Thomas.
Christian.
Yeah.
You mean on Twitter, X?
Yeah. Or just like
Yeah. Unfortunately
voices.
for me, that is has been something I actively don't do.
That's okay. You're
Yeah.
probably much more sane than the rest of us. Especially right now for the next week or so. It's probably a good idea to just stay off of it. Yeah, maybe the next month.
I just want to make it spell that right.
Josh Long. Oh, which, by the way, Beautiful Podcast should be in the podcast sections as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can do Dan Dobrin. We work with him at Google.
Yep.
If you're interested in the Google area. And also, what's his name? Let me find it.
Google.
He is from Vadin.
Oh, yes.
Who?
Which? Marcus?
Marcus, sorry, not Matthias. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I get his last name right.
Yeah.
Helberg?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible at spelling regular words, so I'm not going to try
it's just the
people's
way-
last names.
Oh, now the slide deck is always making an error. How weird.
Yes. Marcus does great demos. No, they're just two L's. Yeah.
Ooh,
Marcus does great demos.
Yeah, I know you have websites on there, Spring AO, but also like Spring AI reference documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically.
Yep.
Get rid of that.
Yeah, Helberg, Marcus Helberg. Yeah. Yeah, his demo app. We didn't get the demo apps yet, but yeah.
Yeah. What are some of
um,
the popular demos, like favorite demos?
Well, I mean, we've slightly modified the one that Marcus made. That's under Christian's.
The chatbot one?
Yeah, the one that the branches, the DevOps branch. That's one. I think also there's from repo point of view. I'll get them for you. 1 second.
Right on.
If only there was a
Balls has
repo.
one. Yes, we can maybe introduce that.
I have an AI workshop demo or an AI workshop GitHub that has a bunch of examples on there.
Yeah, we have our
I
own
know.
workshop one here, so I'll send this to you in this
We
chat
have the
here.
Spring AI Zero to Hero.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
I like Dan's Spring AI workshop. The one
Craig's.
I use Dan's because I like the way he has the layout of.
And again,
the
I'm not on
examples.
here trying to
But
promote
I
my
mean,
own stuff.
like where these are being updated. These are the ones that I reach out for. At Craig's, right? What I like about Craig. Craig also has the Spring CLI catalog that I just pull in.
Yeah, I just sent a few to you in the Google
Fantastic.
chat.
All right. So yeah, we got a good start. And I'm going to ask you, for those of you that are joining us live, like, where are you reaching out? Who are your favorites? Who should we be adding to this list? I found a Chris Phillipson, one of our coworkers. He reached out and he pointed me to a good set of videos, and I'm going to grab those. And we're also going to try to see if we can bring this closer. And I will find it here. It is. I didn't want to do that. The Neural Maze. This is a YouTube channel. The EURL Maze. On this channel, he went through the different agentic patterns, reflection pattern, tool use pattern, planning pattern, and the multi-agent pattern, and he built them from scratch. But he's Python ML background. He brought that to the front, and his videos are great. And I'm going to, of course, I would prefer to do it in Java with Spring. So I'm going over those videos, but those are really well done videos. And I'm gonna put those on the list because I'm reaching out there.
If we want some general like AI, one of my favorite channels is the Turing Lectures. There are a bunch of really great talks from there, just on like general AI that I've learned a lot from, which is the Alan Turing Institute across the pond there.
Right.
Lots of really great stuff there.
I'm gonna bump this down. Fantastic, right? It's so new, right? These books, they're still like coming, right? There's no like, oh yeah, that's the one, that's the foundational book. That hasn't really been written yet. We're still just scratching the surface on a lot of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what you can get pre-order. I don't know. I'm supposed to be reviewing that book, but
yeah, I'm curious. And again, I've listened to a couple audiobooks on general like AI, but I'm just curious if anybody has recommendations on books that they've read in the AI space, because I'm always looking to find some new books to read there. So if you have some, whether you're in the live stream or you hear this the replay afterwards, please feel free to reach out and let me know, because I'm interested in that. We'll see if we can't get them added to the list too. Yeah, that's a good point too. Post live stream, if you have some suggestions, you can either find us or find me and DaShaun. Don't bother Mark; he's got better things to do. Find us.
no, well, why don't we make a PR? Just let's get this in the readme.
I was gonna say I'll get it in there, or if you want to send a PR. We had a lot of really great contributions to our last repo, and that was a lot of fun being able to like accept all these PRs. So yeah, we'll accept them as PRs too. Give us a couple of days to get this initial set in, and then we'll start accepting some PRs for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is great.
Yeah, I remember there was some good talk about transformers.
Oh, this is a good subject for me.
Yeah. This one? Wait, the Transformers or Simon's? Simon brings up, hey, an alternative route. Bouquet, I don't know how to, need choice on TDD with generative AI. The topic of AI oftentimes leads us to the question of, this is all like, generative. Like our answers aren't going to be the same. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not concrete. So we're gonna how do we validate our answers? And what are the patterns that we can do to validate our answers? Again, this is all moving fast, and we've got a handful of different ways of testing. This is great.
This is one thing I get a lot of questions on, like how do I test some of this stuff? And I don't have all the answers to that. I'm gonna have to sit down and figure that out one day and like get some videos out there on it. But the idea of testing in a generative AI space is something that I don't know a lot about. I would like to learn more about it. So,
yeah, we have evaluators. That's kind of the technique. Although, it was all set to kind of go down the path, forged, I guess, a little bit from Llama Index of how you evaluate basically three things: the input, the output, and the supporting data. But then there, from one of those podcasts we listened to before, there was this woman from Hugging Face, and she runs the LLM benchmarks that everyone tries to get a high score on, and she was saying like those techniques are just wrong. She couldn't have been more emphatic about it. And they have lots of biases in them, like if you get the same answer, let's say, but one from OpenAI and let's say one from Claude, and you basically ask each model to evaluate their own stuff.
Yep.
They're like, that's great. And then you switch it and they're like, that's not so good. So they have this bias toward their own answers.
Yes.
And the list of biases goes on and on. Just sad to say, as does the list of human evaluators. Humans have biases. Who knew? And there are models now dedicated to judging, so to speak, so not general purpose models. Mm-hmm. And the other big deal is, like, from her point of view, especially who runs a benchmark, it has to be reproducible. So that means you have to have the model, completely, defined. and reproducible. Whereas the models that are on OpenAI, even though it says, GPT-4o, they're constantly tweaking it every day.
Yep.
So, it's not changing drastically. It's not like, dog is cat and cat is dog. But, if you're trying to really come up with a rigorous benchmark, you need reproducibility.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an area there. That's one of the other areas that we need to focus on. There's very nascent support there right now. So it's not like unit testing. See a green light, off you go. It's much more like integration testing, and then determining if it's right. And clearly you can do this with a domain expert. So, welcome to finally the real world use case of having a domain expert on your agile team. If it's a topic that a developer has no clue about, like terms and services or something legal, you actually have to have someone review it who has that domain expertise. Of course, that's expensive and timely, so people look for automated ways. And that's, I think, the subject of continuing evolution. And there's a new benchmark now. I'll put a link to it. LLM AgriFact. Yeah.
That might be a good section here too, like benchmarks for LLMs in general, because there's so many out there. It's like hard to keep up with, like who's doing what.
Yeah, when you go shopping, I mean, she has I need to just dig up that specific podcast because it was very good.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention, Simon mentioned Guillaume Laforge. You could take RAG content out of there, just Guillaume's in general from Google. Yeah. I've known Guillaume a long time. He's the creator of Groovy. Really great dude, really great guy. Sorry, works at Google now and works on some of the AI stuff there. So yeah, great content from Guillaume, and I know he just had like a workshop at Devox, which I'm going through, which is really good.
So here's the Open LLM leaderboard. This is like
That's it, yeah.
The spot for sure. I don't know how much she posts, but this is the woman I was talking about. I actually want to try and meet her. She's in New York. And where was this? Was Latent Space. That was the one.
Latent Space is the podcast?
Yeah, I think she was on Latent Space. Benchmarks 201. Oops. Trying to find it in real time.
AI Fundamentals Benchmarks 101. Latent Space.
No, it's Benchmarks 201.
Ah.
We've gone to be a sophomore now.
Nice.
Yeah, this is the one.
I'm looking for the link. Benchmarks 201.
Yeah, I found it. I just sent it. Yeah.
All right.
Her name is Clementine Fourier.
What for benchmarks though, what's the one that you said is kind of the gold standard for like where all the models are?
Yeah, I think, did I send it to you? Maybe not. Sorry.
Oh, you might have, but maybe not.
Oh no, I've been posting it to someone else.
That's all right.
That's okay.
Somebody's getting some knowledge.
Adib is going to wonder what.
Shout out to Adib.
Yeah.
Adib, somebody else.
Yeah. I was asking him for a video that he sent a while ago, and now that we moved to GChat, we've lost all our history. I can't just look it up to verify. Here we go. Hope I can paste. Yeah, like that.
Fantastic. Latent Space.
LLM. What is that? The LLM leaderboard.
Yeah. Clementine.
You get the link directly for.
We'll grab some of this.
Oops.
Fantastic. This is great stuff. So we're getting this kicked off. We're going to turn this little board, we'll turn it into a README, and we'll get a repo out there so we can get feedback from the community. But this hopefully will be enough to get somebody out the door. Get somebody.
Let me get one more demo in there. Our good buddy Sergey Almar has a demo on Twitter that he went through and built like this RAG document system using Spring AI. So we can put that in there. I love that one. But yeah, I think this is a really good start. And again, the idea is really we'll turn this into, there's a GitHub repo already. We'll get this into the repo, into different sections. And then the idea is hopefully we can get some PRs and some suggestions from the community. And then as soon as we get to this, as soon as we can get this to a nice place, Mark has promised us some really like golden office space on the Spring AI README. We can link to this resource. So
fantastic.
That is prime real estate, folks. So.
That'll be great.
Funny.
Mark, thank you so much.
You're welcome. My
this
pleasure.
Has been wonderful. Time.
And thanks for everyone who joined.
When we're hanging out. Yeah, we had a nice turnout today.
Yeah,
it
was great.
Good times. Yeah. So thank you so much. I look forward to doing it again when we get a 1.0 release. This GA, just so we can have a chance to hang out. But one of those chats, the Hugging Face, we have a lot of new stuff around Hugging Face too. And yeah, things are moving. Things are moving fast.
Yep.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Mark, if you want to be found on the internet, I'm not sure if you want to be found, but if you do want to be found, where can folks find you?
LinkedIn is the best way.
LinkedIn? Okay. All right. There you go. But try and slow the comments down. Mark's a busy man, all right?
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark, for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Yeah. Thanks for all your suggestions here. And we look forward to getting that repo published, and we look forward to your PRs. With that, thanks, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks. See ya.